Hello everybody, today's August 1st, 2025, and welcome to another edition of Trade Geeks. It's Friday. Today's hot topic is the famous reciprocal tariffs. Today, I think some important points to go over is the overall impact. The overall impact from the tariff, it appears like the magic number is 15%. 15% is the tariff that countries are paying that were able to cut a trade deal, which there weren't that many, but there were some. So the countries like Korea, Japan, Europe, got a pretty sweet deal. But for the most part, the countries that were able to cut a deal or a trade deal with Trump, looks like they're getting a 15% tariff rate. Everywhere else, what we're looking at is anywhere from 20 up to 40%, right? Depending on the country. India, Brazil, and Canada are on the naughty list. So they got the higher tariffs compared to everybody else. They got hit with a 50% tariff for Brazil, a 25% tariff for India, and then Canada, they're looking at a 35% tariff. Now, Mexico, the president of Mexico had a call on Thursday morning, and they agreed to a 90-day pause. So we got a reprieve here on the southern border. China, the can got kicked down the road. So, there's still some more negotiation going down on that path. So they kicked the can down the road. Another sectorial tariff raised its ugly head this week, and it was the copper tariff. The copper tariff is going to have a 50% tariff on tariff derivatives, which is very different from the steel and aluminum tariffs that we've seen here of late. Basically, I think that the copper tariffs kind of make more sense. In the copper tariffs, the tariff is not going to be applied to the very basic raw materials like the cathodes, right? Maybe rods and stuff like that. That's very, very basic raw material. But the tariff will apply to products that are used from these raw materials to make products. Those will be hit with the 50% copper tariff. And as we've mentioned in our previous videos, we think that the shotgun approach that has been taken on the tariffs could have been a little bit implemented a little bit differently. I think that I called it a reverse inverted tariff. And what exactly do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that if you're going to help a U.S. manufacturer be successful in the U.S., well, you don't want to tax their inputs or the raw materials that they use to make their products. You want to put the higher tariff on the goods that you want made in the U.S., cars, appliances, televisions, and cell phones. Apple builds countries with how much volume and how much, components that they do to build their phones and stuff. That's a huge thing. Ford, the automaker in the U.S., is really, really upset. They're really griping that this is really going to put them at an unfair disadvantage, particularly with the Japanese trade deal that was cut. Basically they feel they've been undercut and it's going to put them at a disadvantage. Now, while we're seeing all these deals happening and all this stuff, we got to keep out for the guidance from CBP, until we see the guidance, we don't know exactly the details, and the devil's in the details. So, for example, the copper tariff was kind of a different take. It's implemented quite differently than the steel and aluminum tariffs, for example. Also, you got to read your fine print. At the end of the guidance from CBP for the copper tariffs, there's a warning in there. So don't forget to read to the end. We're going to see an immediate appeal. So we're going to see what the Supreme Court, they're next up on the ticket, and we'll see how they're going to bat and how they're going to hit the ball. So let's stay tuned and see what's going to happen there. Another important development this week has also been the lawsuit that was brought by 3 small U.S. importers and 12 different states in the United States, including Oregon. They basically have sued the government, saying that the IEEPA tariffs for the reciprocals is unconstitutional. It's against the law. So the appellate court, I think Thursday, they released some information or just some comments. And their comments basically were saying that they don't think there's no way in hell that these reciprocal tariffs should have been placed, or that the president doesn't have the power for the reciprocal tariffs themselves. So thank you for listening, and I've got to put in a plug for TradeFlex Group. Here at TradeFlex, we offer regulatory intelligence. I think that's our key core competency here. And we're here to help our clients. You know, we've been growing and helping a lot of different clients from all over the world. And, you know, some clients are saying that, you know, we seem to be on the ball where tariffs are concerned. So don't forget to check us out. You got to check out our website, www.trade-flex.com. There's a little red button there you can push and see some of these videos. Austin's put them there in date order. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody. Have a great weekend.